In the spirit of respect, authenticity, and reconciliation, the town of Slave Lake honors and acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional lands of Sawridge First Nation within Treaty 8 territory, home to Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit peoples who have occupied these lands since time immemorial. Councillor Choba.
I'd like to move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Councillor Gramlich.
Make a motion to adopt the regular meeting minutes of council from March 5th, 2024 as presented.
Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Councillor Adams.
In section 2C on the meeting committee of the whole minutes, it looks like our recess and resume times are backwards.
They are. Would make a motion to the amendment.
Can we accept them?
Okay, Councillor Adams.
I'll make a motion to accept the committee of the whole meeting of March 12th, 2024 minutes as amended.
Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. First up, we have our mill rate bylaw 06/2024, and that is over to you, Roland.
All right. Good evening, your worship and members of council. The purpose of tonight's report is to give all three readings, and it should say 06/2024, which gives the rates of taxation to be levied against accessible property within the town of Slave Lake. So then now that budget's passed, we move on to step 2, which is actually setting the rates. For the history there, we've just quoted the relevant sections in the MGA. This is a bylaw that must be in place by May 1st. Just as a note, municipalities are required by the MGA to hire an independent assessor. In our case, that's KCL Consulting for the town of Slave Lake, whose responsibility it is to establish the fair market value of all the properties within the municipality. So it's not the town itself. We go out and hire an independent contractor who then comes up with those values. They relay those values to the town. And from there, we take those values and we take our budget and then we figure out the mill rate. So tonight we are presenting the 2024 mill rate that's required to fund both the operating and capital budget. For assessment values, assessment growth remains unchanged from the prior year. So we had 2,903 parcels in 2023, and in 2024 on our roll, we still have 2,903 parcels. The taxable assessment, however, on a year-over-year basis has increased 30.5 million. Residential assessment, including multifamily dwellings and condominiums, have seen an increase of assessed value of approximately 24.3 million, or 3.92% over the prior year. Commercial and industrial assessments have seen an increase of approximately 6.1 million, or 2.64% over the prior year. The linear assessments have had no material change year over year, and non-taxable assessments have increased by 5.3 million. And so how does that translate? The overall mill rate changes. The mill rate for residential farmland will change from 9.4735 in 2023 to 9.3406 in 2024. Non-residential will have a mill rate change from 14.0409 in 2023 to 13.844 in 2024. And the combined mill rates for municipal, school, and seniors residential for residential will change from 12.3 in 2023 to 12.17 in 2024. With non-residential linear combined rates changing from 18.06 in 2023 to 17.877 in 2024. So while the rates do go down, the amount of taxes that we do go up simply because the assessed values of all our properties are increased. And so it's not really the mill rate that drives how much more you're paying, but the budget allocations that we required. We required more money this year in our budget. And the mill rate is just that rate that is levied against all of the properties to get the taxes that we require. With that, are there any questions?
Counselor Adams.
Uh, Actually, you answered most of it in the report, so I am good. I'd like to move that council give first reading of tax rate bylaw 06-2024.
Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Counselor Gramlich.
I'll move that council give second reading of tax rate bylaw number 06-2024.
Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Counselor Ferguson.
Move that council gives unanimous consent to third reading of tax rate bylaw number 06-2024.
Further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Counselor Moilam.
I'll move that council give third reading of tax rate bylaw number 06-2024.
Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Your turn, Alex.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me tonight. I'd like to present to you a report on Fire Smart and how we're preparing for the upcoming fire season in our community. So the purpose of this report is to just bring you up to speed on our operations within the town and the region for the 2024 season. Since the fire in 2011, we've been practicing the 7 disciplines of Fire Smart, focusing a lot on vegetation management, education, and interagency cooperation and cross training. So this year, we've kind of started a lot earlier than years past. So normally it's about April when we start getting our equipment ready, getting our crews trained up. We started in about mid-March this year. We brought our trailers out of storage, got them ready to go. We started doing some course training, both in town of Slave Lake as well as our outside partners we've been training with. We got some new infrastructure coming this year that was voted on by council. So we have a new trailer with more pumps, more sprinklers, more hose, that type of thing. And we started burning, hazard reduction burning in the community yesterday. So that's the earliest, tied the record for the earliest we've ever burnt. However, the conditions yesterday were not great. Very high fire hazard yesterday. We ended up having to actually shut it down early because of the winds and the dry conditions. So we're hopeful to get back out and start doing that again as soon as the weather gets favorable again. We've started doing policy reviews and doing our emergency management training as well, which we have a tabletop exercise coming up in April to get everybody up to speed, hopefully before the fire season starts, but that's with the weather as long as it stays favorable. We do utilize our social media, the town social media and Voyant when we're burning to allow people to give people a heads up for that and let them know what we're doing in the community. So that's basically an update of where we're at, going into the fire season this year.
Counselor Adams.
As far as the new trailer, when are you expecting that to arrive, or has it already?
So some of it is here already. I would say probably, unfortunately, it's going to be probably mid-June before it's fully intact. Due to the fire season last year, the pump availability is definitely a lot harder. And we did have to order quite a few of those. So the orders are all placed for all the equipment. Some of it started to arrive, but it probably won't be completely finalized till June. However, we can use what's here now. Plus, we also have the 2 trailers that we've had existing. So we're not without equipment. We just don't have all of the new stuff yet.
Okay. And then also you were commenting on there about emergency planning. Where are we at with that? How does that roll out? Is that in conjunction with other, like not just the town? Is it in conjunction with anybody else, or is it just in-house?
Yeah, so the fire department looks after the regional emergency management plan. That just actually got finalized yesterday. So the new plan has gone out to all our regional partners. We are obviously part of the MD as well. So the tabletop exercise and the planning is in conjunction with the municipal district of Lesser Slave River. We also work with our other regional partners, RCMP, EMS, very much with forestry. A lot of our updates and things come from forestry. We talk to them almost daily when the fire season is high. Talking about manpower and resources, and they brought on a lot of resources early this year as well. So we're constantly talking to our different partners and making sure that we're all kind of on the same page going into this.
Excellent. Thank you.
Counselor Gramlich.
Chief, I know it's been a while since Hellfire Heroes, but I gotta say that video release was pretty good. Just want to thank you and the communications team for putting that out. It's very informative and we appreciate stuff like that. So thank you.
Appreciate the comment. Thanks. Most of the comment.
Counselor Ferguson.
Given that we have some bush caps up on Flat Top Road, are we planning on doing any Fire Smart work out in that area?
So I can't answer that because it's not, that is government property. So we work very closely with conservation officers of kind of keeping to date what's going on up there. We are also very aware of the other camps in the community. We've been working with the RCMP to go in. We have had some reports of different smoke and things like that. So we go in and we will talk to them, educate them, work with the RCMP on their steps that they're taking with those camps. But as far as one on Flat Top, it is government property. And so we work with conservation on how they want to handle that.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Counselor Adams or Choba, which one?
I make a motion, so go
Okay.
ahead if you
You
got
have
a
a question?
question.
Your motion.
Make a motion to accept his information.
Okay, any further discussion? Call the question, those in favor? And that is carried. Part two for you.
So once again, thank you for having me. The second report that I'm here to speak to tonight is the 2024 Volunteer Firefighter Tax Credit. So back in April of 2023, council approved a new program that we were initiating in the town of Slave Lake, and we also initiated in the MD of Lesser Slave River. We work on a point-based system at the fire hall. So when you respond to calls, when you respond to training, you get a point. So what we came up with was a point-based system, and for members that reached a certain number of points, they would be given a tax credit to the following tax year. So in order for that tax credit to go through, the council must approve that as per the MGA. So brief history, you need to attend over 150 events training to get the max tax of $1,000 and then down to 250. So breaking it down this year without going into the names of all the members, the total amount this year would be $9,500 that wouldn't be collected in municipal taxes to support the volunteer firefighters that have responded to the amount of calls required to receive the tax credit. So the program was, the report was also attached on how we came to these numbers from last year. So basically the ask or the report is to forgive the $9,500 in taxes on the next tax cycle for those members.
Counselor Moallem.
Is this something that we thought of ourselves, or are other communities doing this as well?
So no, it's actually, I believe it was Tabor or Coaldale, one or the other, is where we kind of got the information from. We had to build it into our program on the system that we use. There's also a business tax that's part of that. Not enough of our members didn't have enough daytime response to have the tax implications for the businesses, but it's kind of a combined program. We were looking at ways to thank our volunteers or our paid on call members. And this was one of the ideas that we came about, and it was very well received within the membership. So the ones that were responding, they'll get a letter after today stating how much they'll have as a deduction, and then the town will reduce it off their taxes for this year.
Counselor Adams.
One of the other goals of it was to help with recruiting
Yes.
and retention. Have you noticed anything with that yet? Or is it still too early to even look at that?
We have very good numbers right now. Take out the 6 students that we've had for about 7 months. We're sitting around 49 members, which is actually fairly good for us. I wouldn't say it's completely attributed to this, but when members do find out that there's other avenues for them to keep them there. As far as the retention, we've had kind of our normal membership leave throughout the year. But this was one of the things we talked about with the new members, and it was very well received. Unfortunately, because of their new state, they're really not really eligible in the first year because they don't make enough of the calls, but they will start to in their second year. So I don't have exact numbers for you yet.
Counselor Hughes.
Okay, I will move that council approve the 2024 volunteer tax reduction credit for volunteer firefighters listed above.
Just amend that motion to.
Okay.
Can you just amend that motion to include right beside volunteer and tax to put property tax so that it's identified as a property tax reduction in the motion?
Okay, move that council approve the 2024 volunteer property tax reduction credit for volunteer firefighters listed above as specified. Is that good, Roland?
I
Perfect.
apologize.
Nope.
Any further discussion? Counselor Ferguson.
Just one quick question here. So, it's a great idea and a great incentive. I think it's great to help recognize our volunteers. But given that we are a regional fire service, is the MD participating in something like this as well?
Yeah, so I mentioned at the beginning, they are
Sorry,
also on board.
I lost that when I was typing.
Yeah, they're on the same program as well. And they're a little bit higher. Their members responded to a higher number of calls for their program. It's a little bit different point-based system. So they're about $1,500 more than the town in total. But they're on the same trip with us. Yes.
Thank you.
Counselor Mollem?
Thanks again, Alex. I just wanna, I think it's important to, you kind of skipped over the names, but I think it's really important to mention all those names because they're just fantastic volunteers in our community, and I think they do deserve their names read. So I'd like to firstly acknowledge our volunteer firefighters in our community. Thank you for volunteering, not just for all the calls, but all the training, public education events, hose testing, hydrant maintenance, community events, budgeting, vehicle check, station cleaning, and beyond. You leave your home, your family at a moment's notice, never knowing exactly when you'll be back. For that reason, I want to thank our Fire Chief Alex Pavsek, our administration, and our council for constantly looking for innovative ways to recruit and retain new members. I have learned that communities are not only as strong as their communities are only as strong as their volunteers. So thanks to Alex, the staff at the Fire Hall, Joanne Hunter, Jim Meldrum, Sylvan Normand, Dave Perkinson, Michael Tarian, Paul McGrath, Mario Michaud, Kyle Paulson, John Pretzer, Aaron Combs, Sean Gordon, Peter Coster, Roland Martins, Jamie Peters, Chris Taylor, and Johan Vandernest. And those I might be forgetting. Our council and our community are safer because and more livable because of you guys. So thank you very much.
Okay. Any further discussion? Call to question, those in favor. And that is carried. Thank you,
very much.
Alex. Next up, we have Lori.
Yeah. Okay, your worship and members of the council, I have a few bylaws for you this evening for first reading. So the first one is bylaw number 07-2024. And I'll just stop for a second
Counselor
here.
Moallem. Can we have the minutes note that Counselor Moallem stepped out for this, please? Thank you.
Okay, the purpose of this report is for bylaw 07-2024 to receive first reading and to schedule the required public hearing for April 6th. No, that's not the right date, April 23rd, 2024. The applicant is Maca Properties Limited, landowners the same, and the subject properties are 2971 TR Block 50, Lot 9. What the applicant would like to do is rezone the lands from R1D detached dwelling mobile home district to R2 medium density residential district to facilitate the development of a new semi-detached dwelling. The proposed amendment aligns with the regulations of the MDP, so there's no amendment required there. The MPC will review this application at its April 8th meeting, and as such, their recommendation is forthcoming. Only when a plan amendment is required, as I'd indicated, I've given you the sections of the land use bylaw with respect to what is a semi-detached dwelling. The parcel size is a little bit larger than a standard residential property, and such the landowner feels he's able to build a development that will comply with the R2 regs. I've also given you the surrounding developments on both sides of the street. And I guess the options at this point is that council must, in accordance with the MGA, give the bylaw first reading and schedule the public hearing. And that's it. Any questions? Okay.
Counselor Ferguson.
I'll make a motion here. I will move that bylaw number 07-2024 to amend the land use district map of the land use bylaw number 22, 2007 by redistricting plan 2971 TR Block 50 Lot 9 from R1D detached dwelling mobile home district to R2 medium density residential district, which is first reading, and the required public hearing be scheduled for April 23rd, 2024.
Okay. Any further discussion? Called question in favor. And that is carried.
Yeah, I'll wait.
Yeah, just bring him back.
No problem.
And I did have a request from one of our engagement sessions that for our reports where we give the legal land description, I know we see the civic address on here.
I could say it out
But if
loud.
you could say it as well, because there's some
Absolutely.
people watching online and they say when they hear plan,
Where is that?
they say, where is that? And they don't always have the report in front of them. So if we could,
Sure, fair enough. For bylaw 07 that we were just discussing, that's 1205 11th Street Southeast.
fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, your worship and members of council, bylaw number 09-2024 is before you this evening again for first reading and to schedule the required public hearing. The applicant is Joanne Rosales and the landowners 1694586 Alberta Limited. The civic address is 300 Second Ave Northwest, plan 1431 NY Block 8, Lot E. And what the applicant would like to do is rezone the noted lands from R2 medium density residential district to R3 high density residential district to bring the existing residential development into compliance with the land use bylaw. So right now the site is developed with row houses, 5 units of row houses on the north side of the property, and we think is 3 units on the west property boundary, but there hasn't been a real proper report on the property. So from an exterior look, that's what it looks like, but I don't know for sure until we see an RPR what exactly the units are on it. But we do know that it's more than 2 or 3 or 4. So it is high density residential zoning that's required to bring it into compliance. I've given you the sections out of the bylaw with the definitions for a semi-detached row house and townhouse. And again, I don't know what there is exactly on the site. Currently, the lots to the west of the subject parcel and the lots to the north are zoned R2. Most of the parcels in the vicinity of the lot are developed with houses, and semi-detached dwellings have been developed near the west end of Second Ave Northwest. The lot east of the subject lot across 3rd Street Northwest is zoned CDC Council Direct Control, and the parcels around the CDC area are zoned C1 Downtown Commercial Mixed Use District. The uses in the C1 and CDC are mostly commercial, with one development on the corner of 3rd Ave Northeast and 3rd Street Northeast. The Allery building containing a mix of commercial on the ground floor and residential apartments on the second. And there's a location map attached for you. In accordance with the MGA, council must give the bylaw first reading and schedule the required public hearing. And so that motion is there for you.
Councillor Hughes.
I move that bylaw number 9-2024 to amend the land use district map of the land use bylaw number 22-2007 by redistricting plan 1431 NY Block 8 Lot E from R2 medium density residential district to R3 high density residential district, received first reading, and the required public hearing be scheduled for April 23rd, 2024.
Any further discussion? Call to question, those in favor? And that is carried.
Okay, thank you. The next amendment, regulatory amendment to the land use bylaws, bylaw number 10-2024. The applicant is Slave Lake Real Estate and Holdings Limited, and what they would like to do is amend section 87 of land use bylaw by adding places of worship as a permitted use to the downtown commercial mixed use district. Yeah, and again, the MPC will review the application on April 8th. Their application is forthcoming. I've given you the definition for a place of worship, and section 87 currently doesn't list it as a use. And that is why the applicant is applying to add it. They would like to be able to offer that lease opportunity for a place of worship within their building. Again, the MGA requires first reading and scheduling of the public hearing. So I've given you the motion on page 80 of your package.
Councillor Moala.
For that, should we at all be concerned that it seems like our downtown recently is being occupied by more and more offices and churches, leaving less and less room for retail? Intentionally or unintentionally, this pushes more shopping traffic online onto the highway commercial sector.
Yeah, that's a fair comment, and we can definitely go into that debate and discussion at the public hearing and before second and third reading.
Any further discussion? Councillor Adams.
I move that bylaw 10-2024 to amend section 87 of the land use bylaw 22-2007 receive first reading and the required public hearing be scheduled for April 23rd, 2024.
Further discussion? Call to question, those in favor? And that is carried. Continuing on, Lori.
Okay, this next report is some potential redevelopment options for Fournier Place, and I just want to preface the report at the beginning rather than at the end. We are waiting for a legal opinion letter to come from Brownlee LLP with respect to the restrictive covenants, and the town's option with respect to potential redevelopment options. So this report is giving you information, and all we're going to be asking tonight is just to accept the report. I'll come back with another report with the legal advice letter, and then we'll be able to craft some direction at that point, once we know what we can and cannot do with respect to the restrictive covenants. This report this evening is similar to one that I presented to council, I think in 2022, but I know that not all of the council at the table tonight saw the report. So we're just looking at some potential redevelopment options for Fournier Place should the legal advice indicate that we are able to move with some different development concepts in the subdivision. The legal land description is Plan 122-2039 in Fournier Place subdivision is located at the southwest end of 6th Ave Southwest. So there's a little bit of history on Fournier Place that I gave you, and I won't go into that this evening other than to say when it initially was planned, it was meant to be a higher end mobile home subdivision. We went out for a request for proposal and we didn't get any mobile home companies who responded. It was Homes by Northplex to that end, and they were proposing RTMs and modulars. So we amended the design guidelines and re-registered them on the title of the lands. And so that is how the subdivision is being developed now, is with R1D and RPSL lots. There is a restrictive covenant, and as it's a condition, by condition restricts, limits, and prohibits and prevents actions of someone in an enforceable agreement. As I said, we are seeking legal advice from Brownlee and we'll be coming back with that. Fournier Place has 34 RPSL residential plan small lot district parcels and 60 R1D mobile home detached dwelling district parcels, and 13 in total within the subdivision have been developed, 2 RPSL and 11 R1D. So council has asked administration to consider options to reduce the cost of developments within Fournier Place, and we'd like to provide some potential redevelopment options for your consideration. First and foremost would be a row house development. The administration is suggesting the concept of rezoning 18 lots adjacent to Caribou Trail from RPSL to R3 high density residential district to facilitate the construction of row houses, thereby increasing the density and hopefully decreasing the cost per unit. And I've attached a proposed redevelopment concept map that is on page 92 of your report. The R3 zoning is being proposed for the areas in green. There's a potential to do all of the 18 lots along Caribou Trail, as well as some of the lots, half the lots that are backing onto 6th Ave. Row houses are defined as buildings consisting of 3 or more dwelling units joined in whole or part at the side only, with no dwelling being placed over another in whole or in part. Each unit is separated by a common wall, and each unit has a separate individual and direct access to grade. We've reviewed the regulations for the R3 district, and we've also compared it to the Fournier lots, as well as an existing row house development on 13th Street North or Southeast, to get a better understanding of the style and how well it worked on the site. There are some differences. The 13th Street Southeast development, the lots are a little bit longer. But that said, I think we could get a floor plan that would work on the development, and we're probably looking at going at least 2 stories because there are no below ground foundations permitted in Fournier Place. So it'd be on screw piles, foundation, and concrete slab on top, and then 2 stories above to get enough floor area for the units. I won't go into any more of that one. Based on the potential site constraints, 3-story development, with a garage on the ground floor and living space on the 2nd and 3rd floor looks like it's the best option to get enough density there and to get enough floor plan to make the units marketable. This option also provides a better visual and noise barrier to separate the low density developments within the subdivision from the industrial developments on the west side of Caribou Trail Southwest. Further, typically, again, increasing density should reduce the cost per unit. Another item for consideration is servicing. Row houses are not developed with separate services to each lot or unit, but rather a single service typically with a vault meter. So this means that condominium plan may be required in order to separate the individual units for sale. And finally, if this is direction taken, we may be required to properly abandon the existing services on each of the lots, but we'd look at that further when we got there. The next option would be semi-detached dwellings, which means a building containing not more than 2 dwelling units sharing a common wall or a structure feature regardless of the number of stories, and in no case being located above each other, which would be a duplex. We're proposing the concept of rezoning some of the R1D lots within the center of the subdivision, and those are the corner lots from R1D to R2, and it's because those corner lots are large enough to be able to accommodate that type of development. There is one lot on the corner that you'll see on the map on page 92 that's left in gray. The funny configuration, that narrow rear yard alignment, will make it very difficult to try to get 2 units on that. So we're not proposing that one move out of the R1D, that it would stay. The other option as well is along 6th Avenue southeast. Instead of doing the row houses, we could consider doing semi-detached there because they were actually serviced for semi-detached dwellings in the first place. So that's another option. There's a few different options that could be considered for that part of the subdivision. Mobile homes is another option that would allow the placement of mobiles within the R1D lots, which are the yellow and orange and the 1 gray lot. They're shown on the redevelopment concept map. The design guidelines were originally developed for a mobile home subdivision, so there would be no issues ensuring that the mobile homes meet with the design guidelines. Further, we are confident that once the development is complete, it would be very difficult to distinguish a mobile home from an RTM and a modular on the exterior, as the finishes would be very similar. Finally, the lot dimensions were designed for mobile homes. The front rear yard setbacks are less than for a detached dwelling, and as such, there would be significantly fewer variances required or requested to accommodate these developments on those lots. And the R1D zoning does allow for mobile homes already. However, they're restricted in the design guidelines. Finally, mobile homes often provide new home buyers with a home that costs less to get into than a standard detached dwelling. As far as affordability goes, a mobile home on a corner lot is cheaper to purchase than a house on a lot or a half of the semi-detached dwelling on a lot. And as such would meet with council's desire of more affordable housing options. The planning department is recommending, however, council obtain a market analysis of the potential redevelopment options, row houses, semi-detached dwellings, and mobile homes proposed for Fournier. We're recommending a market analysis so we're better able to determine the relationship between supply and demand and direct the town to the best option or options for redevelopment. We feel the analysis will provide insight that will help us determine market strategies and maybe which development options we should be considering. So we're recommending council accept the report for now as information, direct administration to obtain a market analysis for Fournier Place based on the development concepts proposed in the report, unless council would like to modify that. And we are further recommending waiting on that analysis until we get the legal opinion with respect to the restrictive covenant. And all I'm saying there is if they come back and tell us that we don't have any options, there's no point in spending the money on the market analysis. Any questions?
Okay. Councillor Adams.
I just want to request, actually, more than anything, can you explain mainly to the public what the restricted covenant does and how that is impacting our decision and our challenges in Fournier Place?
Yeah, the restrictive covenant basically is registered on the titles of every piece of property in Fournier Place, and it binds anybody developing the property to meet the design criteria and the zoning and the uses that are listed in the design guidelines. So in order to create more market opportunities within Fournier Place, we either have to be able to amend the restrictive covenant or there has to be some other options around it. The way the restrictive covenant works right now and our understanding of it is that the town could do nothing more in terms of trying to redevelop or provide different housing opportunities other than what are listed in the design guidelines. So the hope is that the legal opinion will provide us with some direction in terms of what we can do. And then we can make some decision about what some of those redevelopment concepts look like.
Councillor Ferguson.
I'll move that council accept the report as information and directs administration to obtain a market analysis for Fournier Place once it has been determined that the town does have the ability to consider alternate development options for Fournier Place.
Motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Councillor Hughes.
Do we happen to know what this analysis will cost? Like, is there a high cost associated or
I don't know.
we wouldn't know that at this point?
I
in
don't
time?
know this. I can have a conversation with Jason. He just had a market analysis for the industrial park plan. I think it was a little more in depth than what we might be looking for. So, but I can find out that. Is there an amount that council feels is, or do you want me to come back with?
I don't know. I was just curious before
I think we would
vote
come back
on it.
with it at that point in time. Right now, the properties in Fournier, we all know how the challenges that has occurred with trying to get that developed.
Yeah,
And the lack of interest in the construction of only single family homes. Obviously, we all know that the cost to develop is very high. Material costs are high, and we don't have an excess of individuals that are available labor for all of the trades.
Mhm.
And when developers are wanting to come in and look at Fournier Place, especially when you look at developments such as Spruce Grove, Stony Plain, Morinville, developers want to build single family homes along with row housing because that is more cost effective and that also gets more houses in there or duplexes or things like that. And that's where this is coming from, and that property has been sitting there for quite some time. If legal comes back with nothing, this can go nowhere. So I would say we would wait until there's a cost assessment.
What I can do is I can just peek in that box and get a cost estimate and bring it back with the legal opinion, just
That
so
would be
you have
fantastic.
an idea.
I think I would feel more comfortable with that too, but I appreciate you bringing this forward. We've had lots of challenges here, so it's nice to try to do anything that we possibly can to facilitate some housing needs and meet those needs in the community. And I know this has been very challenging and on for years, and we just haven't been able to see it move forward. So I'd love to work on that, but I would like to see a cost, I think.
Sure,
myself,
yeah, I'll
so
bring that back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Sure.
I will accept that friendly amendment.
Perfect. That works. There's an amended motion. on the floor. Any further discussion to that? Call the question, those in favor. That is carried. That would be Councillor Ferguson or Councillor Hughes.
That we would like to see what a cost, what the cost would be with the market analysis
Before we proceed.
before we proceed.
Thank you. Offsite levy policy.
Yeah, the purpose of this report, council is to review the approved and revised Town of Slave Lake offsite levy policy. So there's no changes to the offsite levy policy that's been in place since 2016, other than moving it into the new format. There was a little bit of questions, and maybe we'll start with that. Is there questions on the policy or concerns about clarity that I can maybe answer?
Since I was the one that brought this up, it was specifically about developed lands not being required, redeveloped lands, sorry, not being required to pay offsite levies. So since not all of council was at the last meeting, I'll briefly run through my concerns. My concern is that parts of this policy could be used as a loophole per se to avoid paying offsite levies. So as I stated last meeting, if this policy had existed earlier, it could have exempted Cornerstone from paying levies due to the old golf course development and an old residence. Potentially could have exempted parts of Gloryland since there was a development on the land before it was subdivided. I also brought up the scenario of demolishing an old single-family home, redeveloping the land and placing a 30-unit apartment building on it. Since it is considered redeveloped lands, no levies would be required, despite the intensity of use drastically changing. So my understanding was a big reason why this was adopted by council today was in response to those who lost their homes and businesses in the fire. So my thoughts would be that if we are to exempt redeveloped lands from offsite levies, then there needs to be some tighter parameters as to what qualifies for the exemption. I believe it should be for something similar in use and intensity. It should also be time limited from the date of previous development in order to qualify for an exemption. And lastly, I believe if a property burnt in the 2011 fires, then those properties should be grandfathered in regardless and exempt from the offsite levies. Well, there's the background.
Counselor Adams.
I agree with most of what you're saying there. The one I'm not sure on would be the time limit piece, because you take, I mean, whatever that time limit is, and I understand you're putting in the fire, but let's say the fire part wasn't in there. You'd look at the apartment building that burned down next to Aurora Apartments in the southeast. And the idea that was built, levies were paid, it was done as a development for an apartment building. New developer comes in, it's now a market for getting a new apartment building, they build one up. I think since it's a similar use and intensity, no matter what time it is, they've already paid their levies. They
Yeah.
already had the services put there, and I think that's.
I should clarify that because I think there's a little bit of a miscommunication there. The town can only ever collect the offsite levy once.
Okay.
Once we've collected it, we can't. So it doesn't matter if like you said, the apartment building paid their offsite levies, they build the apartment, burns down, they build 20 more units on that same site. We can't go back and ask for an additional levy anyway. This has to do with the burden of proof as to whether or not the offsite levy has ever been paid. And we have.
If I've got myself a chunk of land in the northeast that's nice and big and I can fit like, let's say, the optometrist building would be a good one. We grab that and I've got that zoned. It's already done its levies. If I bulldoze that and I stick up a 4-story apartment building, I don't have to pay any offsite levies.
The way the policy is worded right now, yeah, because the policy is saying regardless of whether an offsite levy was ever paid or not, if the land had a development on it or had a development permit issued for it, we will assume the offsite levies were paid, whether they were or not.
Sorry, I guess I'm getting into a discussion I understand that for like a residential, my understanding of the intent of this was after the fire, we had issue with whether or not offsite levies were paid on some properties that were in the northeast.
We don't, basically after the fire, the town office burned and we didn't have any records.
Yeah.
And I should go back here and be very clear as well. In accordance with Alberta law, the burden of proof sits with the landowner to prove whether or not the offsite levy is paid. The burden of proof does not sit with the municipality to ensure that we have a copy of those receipts. That said, Council of the Day in 2016 were not comfortable with that. They basically said, we don't have the records, we're going to come back and say exactly that. If there was a house on it or a development permit was issued, regardless of if ever the offsite levy was paid, we will not collect it.
I think our spirit or the intent of what was there is right. I don't think it's realistic for us to expect that a house built in 1972, that the current landowner today would have a record of the levies being paid in whenever the heck they were started that policy.
They started in 1985.
There you go.
So they wouldn't have paid 1972 because there wasn't an offsite levy bylaw until 1985.
There you go. But
So
that being
I
said,
get what you're saying because you're,
I
I
mean, you
get it.
look at the entire southeast was paid for, paved and done by the Alberta government, had nothing to do with the town. All the infrastructure and everything when that was first put in, correct?
No, that's not correct. It was Alberta Housing who built the
Yes,
houses,
Alberta
but
Housing, sorry.
the paying for all the infrastructure wasn't paid for by the government. So no, the housing went
Housing.
in, yes.
Yeah.
But
Which is,
the reality is I understand after having a discussion with Councillor Ferguson, what his concern is about, because you know, if you can say, let's use the golf course just for example. The golf course operated there for 20 years, well before the first offsite levy bylaw went into place. And there's a clubhouse there and blah, blah, blah. And they can come back and say, well, you know what? We paid our offsite levy. So, and there was development on the land. So we don't have to pay. And then a cornerstone development goes in. With the impact to offsite servicing, that's substantial. A $25 million development goes in. And the impact was big to our infrastructure, and we're not collecting any offsite levies for it. That is the potential that goes with the way the offsite levy policy is written. So, I don't know if maybe we should go back and relook at what we can do with that, with the policy, the way it's worded, or does council have a desire to do that, or what's the thought?
I'm in agreement with Bryce on this. I think we need to look at this, get what the intent of the council of the day was, also protect us from the cornerstone example.
Yeah.
I would like to make a motion to that effect that we direct administration to examine the offsite levy bylaw.
Policy.
Policy, thank you, and how that impacts us and give us some options with it. Is that clear enough in that jumble? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it may take a few iterations just because it's going to take a bit to kind of get a feel for what exactly you're wanting to, where we're going to draw the lines, but we'll go out there and we'll do some digging and we'll see what's available and what we can come back with.
I would suggest similar options for other municipalities that have had large fires or things. Like
Offsite
that.
levies are just one of those weird things that they're just different wherever you go, but we'll
Which is
reach out.
okay. It would be good to see some options.
Yeah, we will dig into that.
Because maybe people are doing something that, or other municipalities are doing something that we can resonate with, or is perhaps better. And then we can clear that up a bit. Any further discussion? Councilor Brown?
Yeah, I'll just say, good job by Councilor Ferguson bringing this up, because on this term, we had this very thing come before us and we were all torn on the interpretation of it. So now we could safeguard it. It'll be black and white, not, well, this existed in 1988 and they might have paid and they might not have. So good job, Bryce and Lori. This is a good thing we're doing.
No problem. And as the policy is still in effect, we'll continue to operate the way it is until we amend that policy.
And that's
fine.
That's perfectly fine. It's moving forward, we're trying to reestablish some clarity in policies that have a bit of a legacy in nature, and it would be nice to be a little bit clear, especially as we're hoping to encourage more development.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? All questions in favor? And that is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Question period. Do we have any questions for administration? Okay, as I see none, we'll move into State of the Lake. Counselor Moallem?
Ready?
Yes, we are.
Are you ready?
Are you ready? Okay, first, the Slave Lake Shark Swim Club is holding their annual general meeting on March 25th, 2024 from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at St. Peter Ecumenical Church. Have fun and bring the family for fun and games. St. Francis of Assisi will be holding their annual quarter carnival on Saturday, March 23rd from 12 to 4 p.m. There'll be a full concession and activities for all ages. You guys want more?
Please, Ali.
Continue on.
Okay. Congratulations to the U11-1 team that had a crazy weekend in Whitecourt. The Thunder ended up winning in overtime 7-6 over Edson to move on to the final playoffs this coming weekend. I want to send a special thank you to Hisham Kamar and Susan Almais from our Muslim community in Slave Lake for partnering with the Rotary Club of Slave Lake Public Library and the Slave Lake and Area Mental Health Network to provide Ramadan information days to grade 4 and 5 E.G. Wallstrom students. Not done yet. I wanted to wish the U13-1 team good luck this weekend. Slave Lake is lucky enough to be hosting provincials where we will be welcoming teams from Airdrie, Strathcona, Grand Prairie, Vegreville, Medicine Hat, St. Albert, and Glen Lake. Grade hockey starts on Friday at 9 a.m. Opening ceremonies will be on Friday at 4:45 to 5:30. With all my abilities and experience, I will be one of 2 gentlemen responsible for rolling out the carpet on the ice.
Oh, boy.
And that's it from me. Actually, I'll add one thing is the Rotary Club of Slave Lake has just unveiled their NHL playoff drafts. It's you get a 3-pack for $25, a 1-pack for 10. And I understand that there may be different departments in our town office that might be competing against each other. So I'm excited for that as a hockey fan.
Start calling you cruise director here. Thank you for providing the agenda of events for the week. Greatly appreciated. Anything else for State of the Lake? Okay,
Or are you gonna?
no, you good?
Well, I was just gonna say, Council Ferguson, myself and the mayor attended the AM Spring Caucus, Wednesday to Friday in Edmonton. We, met with a ton of ministers and, our MLA kind of rolled out the red carpet and toured us around the legislature. One of the main things I think our community will be most interested in are the meetings with the Minister of Justice and the Minister of Public Safety, Mickey Emery and Mike Ellis. So a couple things rolling out. Bill 11 in Alberta, it'll see ankle bracelets for criminals and a new legislation to improve our sheriffs. So they'll be up to the standard of a police officer. So we'll give them more rights. So that's something our provincial government's rolling out that I think our community and the whole province could drastically use. Bryce, Frankie, any thoughts on those?
I was just gonna say that I think it was very positive to see the comments from the ministers and the focus on crime across the province, and specifically rural crime. There's continuing frustrations with some of the legislation with bail reform that was passed down by the federal government that has basically been offhanded to municipalities and local RCMP to deal with. And the frustrations were heard loud and clear across the province, and we were assured we weren't the only ones that were doing the I don't want to say complaining, but complaining about the state of policing and the lack of effect they can have when it takes an on average of 30 to 40 property crimes before an individual is locked up for over 6 months. And to be jailed again after violating bail is very rare as well. So they heard this loud and clear. We're also going to be having an RCMP town hall in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Our MLA Sinclair will be joining us as well as some provincial representatives. Apparently I'm struggling with that word, for a public town hall meeting. So that will be the opportunity to address council, to address the RCMP, and to address MLA Sinclair with regards to concerns in the community. So I think that'll be a really great opportunity to have us all in one room, and the province should be able to present some of their ideas regarding the passing of Bill 11. So that hasn't passed yet, but that is what was just announced earlier last week. Councilor Adams.
Just for clarification, and so Bill 11 essentially, it's already on.
It wasn't. Wasn't on.
So Bill 11 essentially establishes the framework and the start and the oversight board for provincial policing.
That
Correct.
is not what it states per se, from my understanding of it. So I'm not an expert on it, but what it does allow is, I believe it's expanded an oversight body for the sheriff portion. So right now sheriffs are only limited in their spectrum of practice. And that is what it is intended to do, along with, there's several facets to that. One is the ankle bracelets with regards to people that are out on bail, so that there's better tracking of those individuals and their violations in the community. Okay. Counselor Choba.
Motion to adjourn?
Any further discussion? Called question, those in favor? And that is carried.